Zola offered to trade parents with a stranger's son, and by nightfall, it was a headline. Adesawa didn't know that yet. That morning, she only knew the vendor was late, the stage lights kept flickering, and family day would not be ruined on her watch. Stage lights need to be tested again, she said, pointing toward the rafters, headset around her neck, clipboard against her hip, and confirmed the vendor delivery times. No surprises today. A teacher jogged over. Miss Adesawa, the costume vendor wants to push the delivery window. Tell them no, she said, without looking up. If they can't deliver by noon, call the backup. The teacher nodded and rushed off. Adesawa had coordinated galas, fundraisers, product launches, but this event was hers in a different way. Every year, she watched families gather in one room and remember for a few hours why they loved each other. This year, her own daughter would be one of the children on that stage. She smiled at the thought. She had no idea what else the day would bring. Across the city, in a penthouse above the Han River, the morning was silent. Too silent. Min-jun sat at a table built for 12, using only one chair. A maid set down a bowl of soup he didn't touch. His father, Han Jae-sok, entered, composed, pressed, exact. He straightened the edge of the newspaper on the table before he even sat, the way he straightened everything, as if order in small things could stand in for order in the ones that mattered. He gave his son a nod that wasn't quite a greeting. "Eat," he said. Min-jun lifted his spoon and moved it mechanically. He didn't taste anything. He never did anymore. Jae-sok watched him a moment too long, then adjusted his tie. The same small motion every morning, like resetting something that kept slipping. "The driver will take you to school." Min-jun nodded. That night, though it belonged just as much to every night before it, Min-jun sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor, surrounded by toys he never played with. He picked up a small framed photo from his shelf, the only one in the apartment with his mother in it, and held it against his chest. "I made a friend today," he told the photo, though he hadn't yet. Not really. It was tomorrow's hope borrowed early, the way lonely children sometimes speak their wishes into the past tense to make them feel more real. He set the photo down gently, facing his bed, and turned off the light. Zolla and Min-jun, two households, two kinds of loneliness, about to meet on the same playground. At Hanul International School, Zolla arrived with her backpack bouncing, bright enough to light up the courtyard. She found her mother near the auditorium doors. "Mom," she called. Adesawa turned, her face softening instantly. "My star girl." Zolla ran into her arms. "Are you making the big event today?" "I am, and you're going to perform beautifully." "I practiced." "I know." Adesawa smoothed her hair. "Go on now. I'll see you later." Zolla ran off toward the building. A teacher passing by paused. "Family Day's going to be special this year." Adesawa hoped so. She had no idea how complicated special was about to become. At recess, Zolla sat on a bench, watching other children laughing with parents who'd come early to help with costumes. Fathers lifting kids onto their shoulders, mothers fixing costumes. A girl nearby held up 2 thumbs while her father took her photo, both of them laughing at nothing at all. Zolla's smile faded. She pulled her knees up to her chest and looked away from the empty space where a father should be. She thought about the drawings other kids brought in for family tree projects. 2 parents, sometimes grandparents, sometimes a dog. Hers always just had 2 figures. She used to add a 3rd, faint, in pencil, and erase it before anyone saw. Then she saw him, Min-jun, sitting alone on another bench, staring at the ground like a shadow in the middle of sunlight. She walked over and sat beside him. "Hi," she said. "Nothing." "Do you like robots?" "Nothing." "Do you like anything?" He glanced up. "I like quiet." "I don't. Quiet makes me think too much." He looked at her longer this time. "I'm Zolla." Min-jun. They sat together, not talking, but not alone. Before we continue, I have a question for you. Do you believe a family is defined by blood or by the people who choose to love you? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's continue. Then the loudspeaker crackled. Attention students, today we'll announce details for our annual Family Day event. Zolla froze. Minjun stiffened. The teacher's voice rang bright and cheerful. This year, every student must attend with both parents, a celebration of family unity. Zolla's heart sank. Minjun's fingers tightened on his backpack strap. I don't have a father, Zolla whispered. I don't have a mother, Minjun whispered back. Zolla and Minjun looked at each other, two children carrying the same ache. And then Zolla said the words that would change everything. Can I borrow your father, and I'll borrow you my mother? Minjun blinked. You don't have a mom, I don't have a dad, so we can share. It was innocent, impossible, perfect. No one had ever offered Minjun something like this, not friendship, not warmth, not family. He nodded, a tiny nod, but enough. Okay, Zolla beamed. After school, we'll talk to your dad. My dad? Yes, he can be my borrowed father, and my mom can be your borrowed mother. He won't understand. Adults never understand anything, Zolla said. We'll explain it. Zolla and Minjun, two lonely children, one impossible request, a family waiting to be born. If you were Jaisek, would you have said yes to Zolla's request? Let me know below, because this one decision is about to change all four of their lives. School let out in its usual chaos, but for Zolla and Minjun, the afternoon felt heavier. A secret mission. Zolla grabbed his hand. Come on, we have to talk to your dad before he leaves. He doesn't like surprises. Nobody does. This one's important. They found him at the gate, tall, sharp suit, checking his phone with the kind of focus that made people afraid to interrupt. Father, Minjun said, this is Zolla. Hello, Jaisek said politely. Hi, I'm borrowing you. He blinked. Pardon? Minjun closed his eyes, mortified. For Family Day. I don't have a father, so I need one. Minjun doesn't have a mother, so he'll borrow mine. Jaisek looked between them, thrown completely off balance. Is this something the school requires? Both parents. It's unfair, so we fixed it. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. I see. He didn't, not even a little. Zolla! Adesiwa arrived, breathless, and froze at the sight of him, the suit, the posture, the unmistakable aura of someone who owned half the city. Good afternoon, she said, straightening her blouse. Good afternoon. Mom, this is Minjun's father. He's my borrowed dad for Family Day. Borrowed what? Zolla explained with the total confidence of a child who believed adults simply followed instructions. Adesiwa listened, torn between embarrassment and pride. Jaisek listened, torn between confusion and something softer he didn't have a name for. When she finished, the adults stood in awkward silence. I apologize. Children say things. It's a good idea, Zolla said stubbornly. Jaisek looked at his son, really looked. The loneliness in his eyes wasn't something a child invented. The request wasn't silly. It was honest. Perhaps, he said slowly, we can discuss it. Adesiwa nodded, relieved. Yes, we can. Zolla and Minjun grinned. Mission accomplished. The rehearsal schedule arrived the next morning. Parent-child dance practice, costume fittings, a family photo session. Every student, both parents. Which meant Adesewa and Jaisek, whether they liked it or not, would be sharing a room. Adesewa had barely slept. She'd stayed up finishing the vendor contracts after Zolla went to bed, then woken early to redo the seating chart a second time because the first one didn't feel right. She'd skip lunch again today, she already knew. She always did on rehearsal days. There was simply too much to hold, and she had never learned how to put any of it down. The auditorium was chaos, kids running everywhere, props toppling, a teacher shouting over the noise. Adesewa moved through it like she'd built the place herself. Jae-sok stood stiffly near the door and, out of habit more than purpose, straightened a stack of folding chairs someone had left crooked until Zolla waved him over. "Borrow Dad, here." He flinched at the nickname but walked over anyway. The dance routine dissolved into chaos within seconds. Zolla improvising wildly, other kids colliding like bumper cars, Min-jun frozen in place. "They're trying," Adesewa laughed. "They're not following instructions," Jae-sok said. "Children don't follow instructions, they follow fun." He watched her, amused despite himself. When the teacher pulled parents in, Adesewa danced immediately. Jae-sok hesitated, then stepped in stiffly, and Zolla grabbed his hand. "Relax." He tried. He failed, badly. Arms too rigid, counting steps under his breath instead of feeling them. Zolla laughed so hard she nearly fell over, which made Min-jun laugh, which made Adesewa laugh, which finally cracked something loose in Jae-sok too. A real laugh. Short and surprised, like he hadn't used the muscle in a long time. For 30 full seconds, none of them were performing anything. They were just four people making a mess of a dance routine, badly, together. It didn't last. It didn't need to. It was enough. Halfway through, disaster struck. A vendor call, a dead stage light, a teacher on the verge of panic. Adesewa stepped in immediately, calm and precise, splitting parents into groups, restoring order in minutes, never once sitting down to catch her breath. Teachers gathered around her like she'd saved the whole event, because she had. Jae-sok watched, quietly impressed. This wasn't luck. This was competence, sovereign, unhurried, earned. He also noticed, without quite naming it, that she hadn't eaten anything all afternoon, and that when a teacher offered her a sandwich, she waved it off to go solve someone else's problem instead. "You handle crises well," he said afterward. "Occupational hazard," she smiled, already reaching for her clipboard again. "You make it look easy. It's never easy, but it's worth it." She paused, then added, almost to herself, "I'll eat later." He hadn't expected to admire her, but he did. Nearby, on the floor, Zolla and Min-jun were sharing snacks. Min-jun pulled out a pencil and drew 4 figures holding hands: himself, Zolla, Adesewa, his father, smiling under a row of stars. "This is us," Zolla whispered. "I wanted to draw a family," Min-jun said, cheeks pink. Across the room, Jae-sok caught sight of the drawing. His breath caught. He didn't know why, only that something shifted in his chest that he wasn't ready to name. That evening, walking to the car, Zolla tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mom, today was the best day." "Was it?" Min-jun laughed, like a real laugh. Adesewa smiled, tired in the way that felt good instead of heavy. "I noticed." "Can we do it again tomorrow?" Adesewa thought about the flickering stage light, the vendor problem still unsolved, the seating chart she'd have to redo a 3rd time. "We'll see, baby." But some part of her, quiet and unguarded, already hoped yes. From across the auditorium earlier that day, a woman in an elegant hanbok had watched the 4 of them with narrowing eyes. Han Jae-sok's mother. She turned to a parent beside her. "Who is that woman?" "Miss Adesewa, the event coordinator, very capable. And why is she speaking to my son?" The parent hesitated. Their seating children seemed close. Her lips thinned. That must stop. The photo appeared online that night. A parent had snapped it during the crisis. Adesewa and Jae-sok standing close, mid-conversation, both smiling. Innocent in the moment, damning out of context. By morning, it had a headline: "Billionaire CEO Han Jae-sok seen with young foreign event coordinator. Secret support." Jae-sok showed her his phone at the school gate. Adesewa scrolled. Comments, speculation, her face and his twisted into a story neither of them had written. "It spread overnight," he said. "My mother is furious." Of course she was. One photo changed everything. Do you think they were judged too quickly, or did they cross a line? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like and subscribe. Whispers followed Odysewa through the auditorium all morning. Zola clung to her arm at one point. "Mom, why are they talking like that?" "It's nothing, sweetheart." It wasn't. By afternoon, the principal called an emergency meeting. Parents filled the room, arms crossed, voices low. Teachers hovered near the walls. And seated like ice at the head of the table was Mrs. Han. "We've received complaints," the principal began, "regarding certain interactions." A parent near the front spoke up before anyone else could. "It's confusing for the children, all this back and forth, two households acting like one." Another added, "It doesn't look right, does it? Not for a school like ours." "This woman is inappropriate," Mrs. Hans said flatly, nodding toward Odysewa, "and she is interfering with my grandson's stability." Gasps rippled through the room. "That is not true," Odysewa said, her voice steady despite the heat rising in her face. "I am doing my job. My daughter made a request out of love, not scandal. Your presence is causing problems, regardless of your intentions." "Mother, stop," Jisek said, straightening his cufflinks, the same reflex as always, order where he could find it, since there was none anywhere else in the room. She ignored him. "You have a legacy, a name. You cannot afford this." "Min Jun is finally connecting with someone. He's happy. Do you understand what that's worth?" "He is confused. There's a difference." "Zola is being judged," Odysewa said sharply. "I won't let her be humiliated for something she didn't do." The principal raised a hand, weary. "We've made a decision. Family Day will proceed, but children may attend with one parent only." Silence dropped over the room like a curtain. "We can share," Zola had said. "Not anymore." Mrs. Han rose. "Good. End this arrangement." "This isn't about me," Jisek said, standing too. "It is always about you, and your son, and our name." She walked out. The principal followed, murmuring apologies to no one in particular. Odysewa and Jisek stood alone in the wreckage of the meeting. "This is hurting Zola," she said quietly. "It's hurting Min Jun too. Then we should stop." "No." He looked at her, something fierce breaking through the composure. "He finally feels happy, finally feels connected. You want me to take that away because people talk?" And Zola is being judged for something she didn't understand she was starting. "I won't let her be humiliated. And I won't let my son lose the first friend he's ever had." Their voices rose. Neither backed down. Outside the door, Zola and Min Jun waited and heard everything. Zola ran to her mother the moment the door opened. "Mom, what happened?" Min Jun looked up at his father, eyes wide. "Are we still doing Family Day together?" Neither adult answered. The silence answered for them. "No," Zola whispered, shaking her head. "No, we didn't do anything wrong." "I don't want it to end," Min Jun said, voice cracking. Jisek knelt beside him. "I know, but he couldn't fix it, not like this." The walk home was quiet, too quiet. Zola didn't hum, she didn't skip. She held her mother's hand and stared straight ahead, small fingers trembling. At home, she sat on her bed with the drawing, 4 figures holding hands, smiling under stars, and whispered, "We were supposed to be a family." The next day at school, she avoided everyone, the other kids, the teachers, the auditorium. At recess, she sat alone at the far edge of the playground until Min Jun found her. "Are you mad at me?" "No." "Are you sad?" She nodded. He sat down beside her. "Me too." Zola and Min Jun carrying something too heavy for their age. After school, Odysewa scanned the crowd at the gate and didn't find her. She checked the benches. Nothing. The swings. Nothing. She told herself not to panic, that Zola was probably just talking to a teacher, probably just tying her shoes somewhere out of sight, probably fine. and felt her own words fail to convince her. Zolla? No answer. Her heartbeat quickened. Have you seen my daughter? She asked a teacher who shook her head. She left the classroom at dismissal. Panic rose in her chest, sharp and total. Zolla! Jaisek heard her voice and turned sharply. What's wrong? I can't find her. Her voice cracked on the last word. Min Jun's eyes went wide. Then he tugged his father's sleeve. I think I know where she is. He led them behind the school building, past the bins, to the quiet corner by the old storage shed where no teacher ever thought to look. And there she was, sitting on the ground, holding the drawing, crying silently. Zolla! Odasewa rushed to her, dropping to her knees on the concrete without a second thought. Zolla looked up, face streaked with tears, and held out the drawing with a trembling hand. If we can't be a family, I don't want Family Day. The words hit like a blow. Odasewa's breath broke. Jaisek froze. Min Jun began to cry too, quietly, the way children cry when they're trying not to make it worse for someone else. Zolla curled into her mother's arms, sobbing. I just wanted us to be together. Jaisek knelt beside them, his voice barely a whisper. So did we. Zolla, Minjun, Odasewa, and Jaisek, the four of them sat there together, broken, hurting, holding on to a drawing of the family they'd almost become. Do you think this borrowed family deserves a second chance? Tell me what you think in the comments, and if stories like this touch your heart, consider subscribing so you don't miss part 2.